Hi, everybody. Welcome to English Digest. I'm Stephanie.
I am Tom.
This is our research unit, but it's also kind of funny. So we're going to have some fun with this particular research unit. We're trying to make sense of letter mix-ups, and we're using something that has been coined or called typoglycemia, which is kind of fun. We're always texting each other. That's what people do nowadays. Rather than get on a phone and talk live to a real person, people will just text. I find texting very helpful sometimes. But other times, Tom, when I really need for people to understand what I'm saying and there's feeling behind the words, I will call them.
All right, call or send a voice message. I like to do that. It's a lot easier, but sometimes you're in class or something and you're texting your friends, and if you do a voice message, well, the teacher's going to hear you and you're going to be in trouble. So, of course, everybody likes to send texts. And yes, we do make typos from time to time, but oftentimes we think, well, that's a typo, but I think my friend is going to understand what I mean. I won't bother correcting it. There's another problem, though. Is it called smart text or something? If you make a typo, then you will get a suggestion for the word the computer or your phone thinks you're trying to type, and you just keep going anyway, and you realize, I didn't ask for that word. That's stupid. I got to back up and erase it, and it can be quite annoying, especially if you have big fingers like I do and trying to type messages on those small screens. It can be a bit of a hassle.
You can turn that function off, though, Tom. I no longer have those suggested spellings.
Sometimes they help, though.
Sometimes,
yeah, if you want a long word and you just type the first two letters, it can guess what you want to say, can make your messages faster. But we're talking about something else called typoglycemia, where the words are misspelled on purpose, except you still have the first letter and the last letter, and you look at the word and you're trying to figure out exactly what the word is supposed to be. So let's make sense of letter mix-ups through typoglycemia in today's program. Let's get to it and listen to our article read right now.
In today's digital age, typing is part of our daily routine, from school assignments to casual text chats. Despite frequent typos, our messages still make sense to others. This isn't due to some mind-reading magic, but a phenomenon known as typoglycemia. What exactly is typoglycemia? In 2003, a widespread internet meme claimed that we can still comprehend scrambled English words. This term, a blend of typo and glycemia, was coined to describe this phenomenon, even though it has no connection with blood sugar. It claims, not entirely accurately, that our brains have the ability to understand words when the internal letters are mixed up, as long as the initial and final letters remain in place. The idea is our brains can divide up the information into easily comprehensible parts. Understanding individual words as complete units helps us recognize the word's shape and predict it based on context. However, most mixed-up words can't be understood. There are specific conditions necessary for typoglycemia to work. For example, shorter words are simpler to read when mixed up. With large words, there are too many variables. What's more, linking words like and, the, and usually remain intact, helping maintain sentence structure. In addition, it's easier to grasp swapped adjacent letters, turning problem into problème, rather than non-adjacent ones to make the trickier pluribum. Finally, scrambled text must still be reasonably predictable, with words resembling their original pronunciation. Now that you're acquainted with typoglycemia, future typos may simply seem like playful brain puzzles waiting to be solved. Okay, guys, let's jump in. We're trying to make sense of letter mix-ups through typoglycemia. So let's take a look at this. So in today's digital age, and we're definitely living in a digital age, typing is a part of our daily routine. We're always typing. I think it's interesting, though, Tom. I've noticed that every country's language skills have declined recently. I think it's because of all the texting we do. People aren't as careful. They use a lot of short acronyms like talk to you later is TT, UL, talk to you later. A lot of people are using those. And a lot of kids are forgetting how to spell words, at least English words. I guess in Chinese, I'm seeing friends who will often say, 怎么写? They forget how to write the character. So sometimes these digital devices that we have are actually hurting our language rather than helping it.
Yeah, that reminds me, recently my wife had to write fang qi to qi, and she couldn't think of how to write qi because she had to do it by hand, and she had to ask someone else how to write it because usually if you write in the bupamafa, it just shows the characters, and you know which one it is.
Sure.
You just tap on that.
We do that too, except we use pinyin, right?
Right. With the English, too, sometimes you don't know whether it's the I before E or the E before I or whatever, but you do see the word and you know, oh, that's the word there, so you just tap it without really knowing how to spell it. And yes, typing is a part of our daily routine, and we have a range of situations in which we need to type or text, from school assignments to casual text chats. An assignment, of course, is some kind of work you have to do in school. Your teacher will give you an assignment. It could be to read a certain chapter or to write a paper or something like that. That would be an example of a school assignment. Assign, of course, is the verb. That means somebody gives you something to do. And, of course, we chat with our friends by sending those texts, usually in line, but it could be in other ways as well.
Right. So I have a friend, Tom, that when we text, she's American as well. She'll always correct any typos that she makes. And, you know, I figure we're friends. She knows I know what it is, that I'm not stupid. But sometimes our brains go faster than our fingers, and I do use my hand to text. I don't use my voice. You know, sometimes I forget a word in the middle. And I think, oh, should I go back? Or I won't even read what I text or I wrote before I send it. Sometimes if you want to make sure, you should always read through it. Read it out loud. It'll help you, especially if you guys are writing in English. But yeah, I've decided I'm not fixing typos with her anymore. It's just a waste of time. She knows what I mean. Well, we're going to talk about something called typoglycemia. Sounds like it's an official disease or an official condition that someone might have. When I looked it up, I realized, oh no, it's kind of a made-up thing. So what exactly is this typoglycemia? Well, in 2003, which is pretty recent actually, maybe not for some of our listeners.
20 years ago. Yeah.
who were born then. There was a widespread internet meme that claimed that we can still comprehend scrambled English words. So if English words were spelled wrong, had all the right letters, but they were in the wrong place or the wrong order, we could still understand them. Widespread is one of our vocabulary words. It just means it's everywhere. Widespread. We actually do kind of an equal emphasis on those two words. I know the other day we were recording something and the client wanted widespread, but we say widespread where it's equal more often.
Yep, it's just distributed over a large area, and it was all over the internet. A meme, of course, is an aspect of a culture that's passed from person to person. It's kind of copied. Could be a picture, could be an idea or a concept.
It's usually a picture, isn't it?
Yeah, it's usually a picture, but sometimes it's an idea or a concept.
It's funny.
And yes, indeed, there was this kind of meme that got passed around to see if we could comprehend scrambled English words. So you'd see something on a website, and you'd look at the words and you think, what are they trying to say there? Because all the letters are mixed up. And it would usually say that, well, if you can read this, then you're extremely intelligent. You have an IQ over 150 or something like that, although I don't think they were that difficult to figure out.
Yeah, I thought they were pretty easy.
And, of course, to comprehend means to understand something, especially if it's something that is difficult to understand. Oh, I don't comprehend this message here. It's in Morse code. I never studied that before.
Yeah, so if you comprehend something, it just means you understand something. And scramble just means all mixed up. We often use it when we're making or cooking scrambled eggs. You crack that egg open, put it in the pan with some butter or oil, and then just use a fork or some other utensil and move around that egg, that scrambled eggs. If your brain is scrambled, nothing's clear. I had a sister who was in the hospital for a while, and when she finally regained consciousness, the words coming out of her mouth made no sense. And the doctor said, don't worry. Her brain is a little scrambled, but it will right itself or correct itself, and that's what happened. So scrambled. These words are scrambled English words. Now, this term is a blend of typo. We all know that typo just means making a mistake in the words you pick as you're typing or texting. And then glycemia was coined. Glycemia means related to blood sugar. And these two words were put together, and it was coined or made up. That's what coined mean. Coined means to make up something. This described this phenomenon of kind of mixing up your words and then sending it, and people could still understand it. Remember, this typoglycemia has nothing to do with your health or blood sugar or any sort of medical condition.
Right. Typoglycemia is coming from the term hypoglycemia, which means you have very low blood sugar. This is important for diabetics who can't control their blood sugar or their blood glucose, so they take medication to bring the blood sugar levels down, but sometimes the medication can overdo the job, and then you've got low blood sugar or you have hypoglycemia, and that can be a big problem, and that's why diabetics oftentimes carry a little bit of candy with them in case their blood sugar goes too low, and then they need to have a piece of candy to bring that blood sugar back up again. But again, they're using typoglycemia just because it sounds like the word hypoglycemia, even though it has nothing to do with glycemia, or it has no connection with blood sugar or blood glucose. Now, it claims, not entirely accurately, that our brains have the ability to understand words when the internal letters are mixed up, as long as the initial and final letters remain in place. So we'll give you an example here in a couple of seconds, but basically, yes, the letters are scrambled in between the first and the last letter, and your brain can still kind of figure out what's going on there, even though you know it's not spelled correctly. You can still figure out what the word is trying to say, or what the word is.
It's kind of funny. We're going to take a quick break and listen to our Chinese teacher, and then we'll be back.Hello
everyone, 我是派老师。今天讲解的课程是11月27号 Unit 14。这个单元是一篇克漏字测验，内容与 typoglycemia 有关，也就是字母乱序理解力。不晓得大家有没有注意过，有时候虽然别人单字拼错了，其中的字母顺序不对，但是这不会妨碍我们理解。这就是这篇克漏字测验内容要解释的概念。好，我们现在一起来解题。请先看第一题。前文提到，在现今这个数位时代，打字是日常生活的一部分。不论是学校的作业，或是平常简讯往来，虽然常常会打错字，不过别人还是看得懂我们的讯息。接下来是第一题的题干，这不是空格某种读心术，而是称之为 typoglycemia。字母乱序理解力的现象，我们一起来看看有哪些选项。A. Due to 因为 B. In spite of 尽管 C. At risk of 冒着什么的风险 D. In contrast to 相较之下。只有 A 填入空格句子才有正常的句意，因此第一题我们选 A. Due to。再来，请看第二段，开始解释 typoglycemia 这个字。2003年有个网络迷因，宣称就算英文字的顺序打乱了，我们还是看得懂。接下来是第二题的题干，第二题的选项4个全部都是名词，所以我们知道这一题是词汇题，你必须依据前后文的语义来判断应该选哪个单字。我们先看题干本身的意思 ，this 就这个空格是 typo， 也就是打字错误，和 glycemia血糖的混合词，创造出来是为了描述这个现象，虽然和血糖一点关系都没有。我们再接着看4个选项的意思 ：A. term 术语 B. landscape 地景 C. theory 理论 D. approach 方法。从前后文判断4个选项当中 A 最符合前后文意。第二题选 A term 术语。我们接着看第3题，接着下一句说，这个迷因里面宣称，虽然不完全正确，我们的大脑有能力可以理解单词。虽然里面的字母顺序打乱了，只要第一个和最后一个字母空格。第3题的4个选项都是动词片语，所以我们一样要看前后文来判断。我们先一起来看4个选项分别是什么意思。A. turn the corner 好转 B. make a difference 是有影响 C. break the ice 打破沉默 D. remain in place 是保持原本位置不变。考量前后文，第3题答案应该选 D。
We're going to take a quick break. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back, guys. We're trying to make sense of letter mix-ups through typoglycemia. We started out by telling you what this actually means. Now, we're all living in a digital age, meaning we're always typing, we're always on some digital device. It could be a tablet. We could be using our computers or probably just our smartphones. So we're constantly typing texts. You also, of course, have school assignments if you're still in school. But sometimes we just mistype. We have a typo. So we mistype or misspell. And our messages still make sense to people who are getting them. Now, if you're doing school homework assignments, guys, make sure you don't have any typos. That's a bad thing. Sometimes we get these mixed up texts that still make sense because we're pretty smart. Come to find out, we are smart. So what is this thing called typoglycemia? It's not real. It's not a medical condition, but it is a word that was made up quite a while ago. In 2003, they had this widespread internet meme that claimed or said that we can still comprehend mixed up or scrambled English words.
Right, and remember these words mix up the letters in the middle of the word, but the first letter and the last letter are the same. And the idea is that our brains can divide up the information into easily comprehensible parts. So your brain will look at the word and realize that those letters do belong to that word, but they're just in the wrong place. And then you realize, oh, this is the word they're trying to say. And, of course, your brain figures it out, and understanding individual words as complete units helps us recognize the word's shape and predict it based on context. That also helps as well if you see the word in the middle of a sentence and you see other words around it, then you can kind of figure out what the word is supposed to be. You'll know whether it's a verb or a noun because you've got a preposition before it and after it. So your mind pretty much can figure these things out even though the letters are all mixed up.
Yeah, it seems like kind of a brain teaser or teaser usually, brain teaser, just means they've got a little puzzle for your brain to figure out. So it kind of reminds me of that. Some people are better at figuring out what those mixed up words are, and some are worse. But there are some tricks to it. Tom just talked about how our brains can divide up the information into easily comprehensible parts. You have to understand the individual words as complete units first, though. If you've never studied that English word, you'll never figure it out. But if you know it already and it's something that's very familiar to you, I bet your brain can figure it out if it's misspelled or there's a typo in it. It says here, however, most mixed up words can't be understood. There are specific conditions necessary for this typoglycemia to even work. For example, shorter words are always simpler to read when mixed up. Those are easy. With large words, There are just too many variables. Now, usually we use variable as an adjective. If you have a variable schedule or a variable diet, it just changes. It's not always the same. Here it's a noun, and it just means something that may or can change. It's a feature of something. There are lots of variables to becoming a very successful person in life. There's not just one thing you need to do. There are usually different variables, different factors that you can focus on. So with large words, there are way too many options, way too many variables to make it easy.
Right. If you're a weather forecaster, of course, there are too many variables in the atmosphere to be able to make an accurate prediction about what's going to happen. There's temperature, there's air pressure, and things like that. So there are just too many variables. So that's why a lot of weather forecasts are not accurate. And what's more, linking words like and, the, and usually remain intact. Okay, they're too small to bother mixing the letters up, and they help maintain sentence structure. So if you see the there and the the indefinite article there, then you can probably figure out the structure of the sentence. Would be followed probably by a noun, so your brain will probably be able to figure that out. If something's intact, it's in its original condition or situation. You could say, the message arrived intact. It was complete. It was not scrambled by interference during transmission.
Right, or maybe you have a really bad earthquake or some other natural disaster, but everything in your home remained intact. It wasn't damaged or changed. So these linking words usually remain intact, and that always helps kind of guess what you're looking for. It helps maintain sentence structure. That structure helps our minds and gives us more of an idea of what the context or the situation is, and it's easier to guess in that way. So in addition, it's easier to grasp swapped adjacent letters, turning problem into porbelm, I guess that's porbelm, or just, these aren't real words, so porbelm. Now, if you swap something, you exchange it for something else. Maybe you have a coworker and you are scheduled to work Friday night, but you have a hot date, and you ask your coworker, hey, will you swap your schedule with me this Friday? Maybe your coworker is working daytime hours, you have nighttime, and you swap schedules. So swap just means to exchange something. Swap meet, if you ever go to America, swap meet is a place where you can put up, usually they're secondhand goods or things you already own, and you can kind of swap with someone there. They say, hey, I have this. You want this? I'll take your old piece of furniture if you'll take this from me. So adjacent means next to something. So these letters are right next to each other.
So we've got the example word problem. So, of course, you take the RO and you have them change places. You've got BLM and you mix them around as well. So you can figure it out pretty easily there because the letters are adjacent. They're next to each other. And that works better than doing this with non-adjacent letters.
Yeah.
And so we've got the trickier or more difficult pluribum. If you look at that, it will probably take you a while to figure out that that's supposed to be the word problem because the R is farther down and the L is toward the beginning of the word instead of toward the end. So that would be more difficult. And finally, scrambled text must still be reasonably predictable with words resembling their original pronunciation. So you can't go too far with it, otherwise people just won't be able to figure out what the word is supposed to be. They need to be reasonably predictable. If something's predictable, you can pretty much tell what's going to happen or how someone's going to act. You might have a friend who's very predictable. You know exactly what they're going to say in a certain situation. Or, of course, sometimes we wish the weather were more predictable. I wish we could tell what the weather's going to do, but it's unpredictable because it always has a mind of its own.
It sure does. Now, this last word here that's our vocabulary word is pronunciation. Notice I'm not saying pronunciation. That is incorrect, guys. I even hear Americans say it wrong. It is not pronunciation. The verb is to pronounce, but if you want to say this word, you have to say pronunciation. So I challenge all of you out there to get that right. A lot of people in Taiwan, I would say most people in Taiwan say this incorrectly. So pronunciation, you want to have the right pronunciation so you pronounce the words correctly.
It's a weird word, and of course, it got predictable again. We all wish the stock market were more predictable, but if it were more predictable, then people would be buying and selling the same stocks and no one would make any money. And of course, again, as you said, pronunciation is how you pronounce something, how you say it. And now that you're acquainted with typoglycemia, future typos may simply seem like playful brain puzzles waiting to be solved. And that can be a lot of fun looking at those words in English to try to figure out exactly what they're trying to say. My big question, though, is how this would work in Chinese. How could you play a similar game with Chinese? Would you mix up the words? Would you mix up the radicals and the characters or mix up the stroke order or something like that? Who knows? You may have your own games like this. I'd like to know what they are.
Yeah.
So that brings us to the end of our explanation for today, but now we need to turn things over to our Chinese teacher.
我们再看第4题，前一句提到，但是多数字母顺序打乱的单字难以理解。接着是第4题的题干。第4题也是单字题。我们看4个选项，哪个最符合前后文意 ？A. luxurious 奢华的 B. ignorant 无知的 C. specific 特定的 D. delightful 令人愉快的。根据前后文，第4题应该选 C， 表示字母乱序理解力需要特定的条件才能发挥作用。最后我们看到第5题，题干的部分意思是最后被打乱的文字必须仍然能够被合理的预测，单词要与原始的发音空格。第5题4个选项是动词 resemble 相似和它的变化型。这一题是在考文法概念，空格前面有介系词 with， 后面不可以再有动词，如果有必须要做变化。那应该要加 ing 还是加 ed 呢？ Resemble 的用法是 A 和 B 相似的意思。A resembles B。比方说，小孩跟爸妈很像。Children resemble their parents。因此，第5题一样用主动的语态就加上 ing 就可以了。第5题应该选 B resembling。好，以上就是我们针对这一篇扣漏字测验所做的中文解题。好，谢谢大家。
That's it for today. Thanks for joining us, and please join us again next time. In our next program, we look forward to having you with us again. From all of us here at English Digest, I'm Tom.
I'm Stephanie.
Goodbye.
Bye.